What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, talking today about the PlayStation 5 because finally the first impressions are hitting the internet. Basically, every major gaming website and YouTuber from Yang Yi to GameSpot has now had the system for a couple days, and they're allowed to actually post some impressions as to how the physical system looks and plays. And this is actually the stuff I've been the most curious about. I'm pretty confident that the PlayStation 5 is going to play great because, let's face it, solid-state hard drive, amazing games. I'm super prepared to just get my face crushed by Demon Souls. But now I've been curious more about how this is going to look and feel inside my entertainment center. And now we have some real concrete facts as to exactly how big this boy is going to be. Now, part of the reason I've been fascinated by this is because, let me just go over here for a second and show you some screenshots. When you consider it, we haven't actually seen that many pictures of the PlayStation 5 up until today. We had seen like some CG renderings. We had seen some tiny stuff here and there that was kind of like a display of the size, but now we're getting a chance to see journalists away from Sony just sitting down and seeing what they think about the system. And I'm kind of curious about the fact that it is a pretty beefy beast. Now, I am a pretty big collector of physical goods when it comes to gaming. I love to get game consoles. This is the ultra slim PlayStation 3. I love collecting physical games, obviously. And so I've been curious if this thing is even going to fit in my tiny entertainment center, and it definitely seems like it won't. Now, I've actually gone through and decided to read every single console preview, at least all the ones in English. I definitely missed some like IGN Brazil and stuff, but they've been talking about how this is an un-PlayStation look that's stark and striking. And something that's been very unanimous in here is people talking about the technical details of, HDMI, Ethernet ports, USB 3.1, a lot of technical stuff that's interesting, but I've kind of been shocked just by this is a big boy. Somebody actually decided to wait. This is my favorite of all the articles. This is over on Engadget, and it was written by this woman named Jessica Condit. I've seen some of her writing before. This is the main thing I want to look at because she decided to do some really in-depth measurements, weighing it, and talking about how the controller is great. Now, before we even move on, I do actually want to say something real quick. Everybody who's playing the PlayStation 5 right now is saying that the DualSense 5, the DualSense, is the next generation of controllers. I've seen so many people saying stuff like this. Let me put it this way. There are 2 next-gen consoles releasing next month, but only 1 next-gen controller. That gets me excited. And in these previews, they talk a lot about how this works, what makes it special, and I am understandably hyped. The main thing is, basically, when you're pulling the triggers, there is a special sort of mechanism inside the controller itself that's going to make it where you can have it where it's harder to pull or absolutely locks. If your gun jams in Call of Duty, it could physically jam your controller, which is interesting and hopefully doesn't break, because I am somebody who did, when my controller wasn't working, I accidentally snapped off a trigger. So clearly, PlayStation tech can sometimes be a bit brittle. But now let's go back to the size talk, and let's talk a little bit more about how big this bad boy is. So now, some people have described it as unwieldy. Somebody have actually said that this system is a little bit too big. Some people have said that it's kind of, it's misweighted. A lot of these different articles have talked about the fact that when you pick up the PlayStation 5, it is not an even balance. Whereas this thing, this is the PlayStation 3. The PlayStation 3 is perfectly balanced. You could balance it on one finger if you had any actual coordination, which I, of course, do not. But let's take a look at the PlayStation 5 because we now have an exact weight and we do have an exact size. So, one of the things I've decided to notice is that in a lot of these videos and stuff, people have been showing the comparison of the PlayStation 5, which is, this is my mock-up, my theoretical version I made a couple months ago, versus the original Xbox. And the reason they're doing that is the original Xbox was 8 pounds. It's a pretty beefy boy. Like, obviously it's not super heavy, but it is a cumbersome system compared to some of the lighter systems that weigh 1 or 2 pounds, But let's take a look at this. They found out that this is really how big the PlayStation 5 is. It is considerably larger than an Xbox, an original Xbox. So that means that my system ended up being completely accurate. This is the exact size of the PlayStation 5. Now I have the dimensions a little bit wrong because I'm dumb, but you can see that this is roughly the size you're going to be getting with the PlayStation 5, and that's pretty big. And additionally, we now know the weight, which is 10 pounds. I have one of my 10-pound kettlebells right here. Now, this isn't exactly going to like punch a hole in your freaking entertainment center, but I am curious as to, how do I phrase this? Weaker people. I mean, I do think that there is going to be a demographic of people where 10 pounds is going to be something where they're going to be afraid of snapping it, especially because there are those giant fins on top and stuff. What happens if somebody decides to be dumb and tries to pick this up by the fins and snaps the whole thing in half? I guarantee you, the same way that's in the Wii era, there was that like week 1 thing where everybody was throwing their Wiimotes at the TV by accident and breaking it. I think we're going to see that again when it comes to the PlayStation 5, just from people being dumb with the system itself. But now let's talk more about the impressions and more about the people who are saying what it's like to set this thing up. And also, so here's something interesting. Jessica herself here in her thing talks about how it is a little bit weird, how it does feel like it's hard to move around her house, as she says. But she says, once you figure out the console, where to live in your house, you probably won't be moving it around, making the weight a relative non-issue. So anybody online, any like Xbox fanatic who's trying to act like the system is dead because it's weird to move around, they're just doing some fake outrage. They do talk about that weird stand. I haven't talked about it in videos beforehand, but there is still that weird thing where if you want to try and change it from vertical to horizontal, there is like a thing you have to unscrew. There is like a weird like mounting process, and that's strange to me, but I don't see that as a problem. Like, my thing is, once the PlayStation 5 is in its home, does it work? Does it have good graphics? Is it fun to play? Does it have enough storage space? That is what I care about. And in this, they do talk about stuff like that. We do know for a fact now that it is going to be 10.28 teraflops, and also it has a custom 825 gigs SSD. But that's pretty decent. It sounds like it's going to have a decent amount of space. It does sound like it's going to have a decent amount of power, and it does sound like once you set it down, it's going to work. Now, I want to end this by looking back on the PlayStation 5 controller, because this is what's most important. So I am going to link this article down below. I'm pretty much covering all the major points, but if you want to give Jessica a click here for her hard work, I'm sure she'd appreciate it. Now, I do like that she calls it the trigger warning, but here we go. The new DualSense controller is a legitimate improvement over the existing DualShock series, with a solid body, slightly wider grip, microphone button, and truly enjoyable trigger actions. It's sturdier than a DualShock, and the clear face buttons feel high quality. Plus, if you get really, really close to the back grips, you'll see the texture is composed of incredibly small square, circle, triangle, and X's, the classic PlayStation symbols. Alright, that's pretty nice, whatever. It's a nice little, like, hidden Easter egg. But what I care about is functionality. Honestly, a controller that really won me over this generation was the dog face Wii controller, the dog face Nintendo Switch controllers. When I first saw the idea of a square controller, this seemed so uncomfortable, but the more time I just spent with it in my hands, actually playing it, the more I really came to enjoy that crisp clicking is so freaking delicious. And also, of course, this has the HD rumble. So it does sound like this is going to be a step beyond just typical HD rumble. The R1 and L1 bumpers are wide and clicky, while the main R2 and L2 triggers have a substantial and smooth range of motion, and their tension can be changed on the fly, opening an array of new gameplay possibilities. Now here's the part I was really curious about, which is the Astro's PlayRoom. This is installed in every single PlayStation 5 just by default, and it's obviously just a tech demo to get you used to the new experience of the DualSense. As I played through the Cooling Springs level in Astro's PlayRoom, a demo title showing off all the new tricks of the DualSense, as my little astronaut character wobbled around a busy beach, the controller barely stopped moving, vibrating and bouncing in response to most actions on the screen. There is some serious haptic hardware in DualSense, and if I listened closely, I could hear its gears churning over the cute sounds creeping out of the controller's small speaker. That is pretty interesting, and I want to see the limits of this. I'm definitely excited for the PlayStation 5's actual experiences, but I'm always curious about those things that are trying to push tech. I'm curious about the people that are trying to do something different, because innovation is what's best. Now, I still think that this is going to be predominantly for the first-party PlayStation 5 stuff. I do think that there's going to be maybe some sort of thing of like, if you run out of like web shooters or something in Spider-Man, maybe you wouldn't be able to shoot, or I used the example earlier of like a first-person shooter. I think that's only like a first-person shooter is really going to use all the mechanics of this. Just because if I'm a third-party studio and I'm already trying to make my game, I'm not sure I'm going to be as motivated to try and make, you know, some sort of like cool special, you know, integration into the DualSense. But already, I'm just excited for it. Honestly, the whole reason I'm filming this video is because I'm just so excited for the PlayStation 5. These previews now give me an impression of the fact that it ain't gonna fit on my shelves. Absolutely not. I'm gonna have to find out how to put it on the floor. Maybe I'll have to buy a new entertainment center. I'll have to figure that out in the next week. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. What do you think about the PlayStation 5 impressions? How are you excited for it? Does that screw in the base really kind of annoy you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, you know, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.